Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another beginning of another broadcasting week here on the It's a Wrap Sports Store. Not on the network, but on the Final Word with MattyB. It's Sunday night, March the 16th. Happy St. Patrick's Day Eve to all those out there who are celebrating. I know it's tough to kind of get excited for St. Patrick's Day when it's on a Monday, but if those of you that are still partying or celebrating, I should say partying, celebrating, because I know yesterday was kind of the day to do that. And if you're still doing it, happy St. Patrick's Day Eve, and then happy St. Patrick's Day. But it's great to be here. Start of another broadcast week, another rousing week of adventure, fun, I'm sure some controversy, and I'm sure some laughs and cries and peaks and valleys and all those great things that come along with this program and me. So it's great to be back. It's last week we did our first 5-day episode week in a minute. It seemed like forever that we did that we haven't had a 5-dayer, but we got one in last week, and hopefully the way the schedule looks right now, it should be another 5-dayer. So let's get it going. But before I do, I have to remind everybody that as you can see the scroll, the little ticker below following through or flowing through, please take a second, like, subscribe, give us a share, give us a holler, give us a hoot, give us all those things on all those social media networks, because we are growing. We're growing right in front of your eyes, folks. You don't know it, but we are. And we have some great news to share soon, real soon. We had a meeting today with some people. I talked to some people today, and we have confirmed that we are indeed adding 2 new shows to the It's a Wrap Sports Network Galaxy of Stars, starting on I think early April's the one's coming in early April, and then the other one will be in early May. So within the we'll be debuting a new show over the next one show a month over the next 2 months. So really excited about that. Really thrilled about that. Cannot wait to get that thing going. And I'm not going to tell you who they are. We're teasing it a little bit. One of them. You know the shows. I'll give you that. We'll give Easter eggs out. You know the shows. These shows are not new in the aspect of brand new concepts. No, they're known products with known people, and you know the people too. So we're going to start kind of bringing the band back together, so to speak, over the next 2 months. So I'm really excited about that. We kind of sealed the deal today. But in the meantime, while we're here, we got to get some things going. Tonight on the program, we have Your Day in Philadelphia Sports History. We also have, as this title insinuates, we are 4 days away from spring. March 20th is the first official day of spring. So one of those annual rites of spring is the spring cleaning. You know, when you kind of throw open the shutters, throw open the shades, toss open the windows, let the air kind of go through, sort of wash away old man winter and all the dark and gloomy times that it brought, and usher in that great time of the year, which of course leads us to summer, which of course leads us to fall, which of course leads us to football, which of course leads us to Halloween and Christmas. So you know the routine. So tonight, in honor of the first day of spring, in honor of that rite of passage that everybody goes through. Growing up, it was a pain. My mom really took that whole spring cleaning thing to another level. And really just bad. I hated it. Hated the way that went down every year. But in honor of spring cleaning and in honor of the first day of spring, we are going to usher in and clean out some of winter's doldrums. Try to throw a breath of fresh air into the air. So we're going to do that tonight. We're also going to talk to the birds, because they continue to mystify and defy the odds of what it takes to win in 2025. And we're going to continue to talk their off-season plan, as it was in full effect again over the weekend. Mekhi Becton, gone. Went to the Chargers for 2 years. So now that's 6 known. We've lost others, but 6 players that were straight up contribute. I guess I don't even contributor is a strong enough word. Integral members of the 2025 24 Eagles Super Bowl team are now going to be elsewhere. And we'll talk about the plan. And again, as I said, and I'm going to get back into this, I'm not against the plan. I'm not saying it's a bad plan, and I'm also not against Howie Roseman. But being the right or wrong plan, it's a plan. Is it the right plan? Well, we'll discuss that. So we're going to talk some Eagles. We're also going to check in with the Flyers as their season continues. 68 games now done. Can't get here soon enough, man. And those next 12 games can't be played fast enough. Or what is it, 13 games? No, 14 games. Yeah, 14 games. They can't be played fast enough. We'll talk to some Flyers. Phillies are really bearing down on us. 11 days, folks, to opening day. 11 days to the Phillies and Nationals start the 2025 season, respectively, for each other. 11 days. So we'll talk some Phillies. We'll do the Of the Night segment, as we do. We're going to unveil a new part of the Of the Night segment, right? Another add-on or another addition to the Of the Night segment is starting tonight as we shut down the Flyer prospects, but we open up the Phillies prospects. So tonight we'll start talking Phillies prospects as it's starting to become a little bit more clear where some of these players will land at least to start 2025. So we'll start talking Phillies prospects and our card of the night, our card review, as well as our potential Paul Skeens check-in. So all those great, wonderful things are going to happen over the next hour. So strap in, strap up, put your head, feet, arms, and hands inside the car at all times, and away we go. Let's get it going with your day or night, or afternoon, morning, whatever, in Philadelphia sports history on this day in 2000. 25 years have passed. But do you guys remember the tumultuous? I mean, was tumultuous a strong enough word to explain the relationship between Bobby Clarke and Eric Lindros towards the end of Lindros' time here? Lindros accusing the Flyers of mishandling his concussions. Bobby Clarke saying we're not. Back and forth between the dad, Lindros' agent, just really got bad. And obviously it got so bad, the Flyers dealt Lindros eventually to the Rangers. But on this day in 2000, Bobby Clarke, who was still the GM of the Flyers at the time, had one of his more animated moments as GM in a post-game presser or in a presser. I don't know if it was post-game. I don't think it was post-game. It was he was just talking about Eric Lindros. And when the topic was brought up about Eric Lindros, he began to kind of, get a little, obviously every time somebody brought up Eric Lindros, he'd get uncomfortable about it. Right. I mean, that was known. But on this particular night, a beat reporter brought up the Eric Lindros situation again. And Clarke kind of lost it a little bit, started saying, if you have questions about Lindros, firstly, the funny thing about it was, and this is how far we've gone as a city and as a sports media, we used to have the hardest hitting, don't take no, what from anybody, sports journalists in this town. Growing up, I had the pleasure of dealing with or listening and forging myself to these individuals where they used to ask real questions at these press conferences. They used to ask real things to these GMs, real things to these players. Now it's all about, we don't want to upset them because we don't want to hurt our brand. We don't want to get banned from the locker room, all that. But the conversation, persisted once it turned to Lindros about this one beat reporter who kept asking questions. So Clarke kind of lost it a little bit and said, you know what, you guys, and he blamed the sports media, you guys are the reason why essentially things are going downhill on a runaway train with no brakes with me and Eric Lindros, because you guys print anything you think is truth and people believe it. You don't do your homework. You don't do your research. You just print stuff to print stuff. And I'm not saying he's wrong. I mean, I know people do that and they still do it today, but then when kind of pressed, Bobby Clarke said, if you have questions about Eric Lindros, if you have questions about his concussions, then talk to the trainers and talk to Eric Lindros. And the reporter then fired back with, well, you won't let us talk to the trainers. You won't let us talk to Lindros. And Bobby Clarke said, well, no, I'll let you talk to whoever you want. They just don't want to talk to you because you're an asshole. So Bobby Clarke definitely had one of his more animated moments. And then the reason why it's history making is because Bobby Clarke really, I mean, I don't remember Bobby Clarke ever losing it like that before on during a press conference or any other. I mean, he was a pretty reserved guy, pretty even-keeled guy, didn't get rattled easily. But on this day, talking about his most favorite subject in the world was Eric Lindros, and he lost it with a Philadelphia sports reporter, which in itself is not historical. I mean, that's sort of commonplace around here, but no more. It's been 20. That was the end of it. Like that early 2000s point, from like 2005, 2006, things just weren't the same. Have not been the same with the Philadelphia sports media. So that's your day in Philadelphia sports history. Bobby Clark losing it on a sports reporter in reference to Eric Lindros and calling him an asshole. So I hope you enjoyed your day in Philly sports. Brought to you by the good folks here at the It's a Wrap Sports Network. For all what they do, we do for you. We enjoy it. We love it. And as I teased at the top of the show, the network is growing. It's growing by the day. It's growing by the hour. 2 new shows will be joining the network here in the course of the next 2 months. 1 in April and 1 in May. So if you want to kind of find out the identity of one of the shows, head over to our Twitter, and there's a little teaser about one of them. So, check it out. I'm not going to reveal the name of the show or the people yet, but I think you guys can figure it out. We're not playing detective story here. I mean, we're not trying to be that way, but 2 new shows coming to the network soon. To join the other great programming we have here on the network, which includes, which includes, of course, the Fightins final that will be returning for season number 4 on March 27th. But before we get ready to go with the season, we got to talk about what we can expect from the season. So on March 23rd, next Sunday at 11 a.m., the Fightins final and the 2025 Phillies preview show live at 11 a.m. Eastern time here on the network. Make sure you're there. And also the other great programming, of course, my show, the Final Word with MattyB, every Sunday through Thursday. The Wraparound with Sal G, that's going to air tomorrow with a special guest. We are going to have a special guest host. Sal will not be available tomorrow, so we're going to have a special guest host. Maybe. I'm working on that, and he owes me an answer here soon. So we're going to hopefully go with a special guest host. And then the Clear the Ice program, which, yes, we are still doing. And here's our schedule for the week. Actually, that's not the right one. That is not the right schedule. I'm sorry about that. I owe you the right schedule. That is not the right Clear the Ice schedule. But we are back for Clear the Ice this week. I believe Mike has it the majority of the week. Sal has a game, I think, on Thursday. Tomorrow night, the Flyers will be in Tampa, and Mike Lauer will be there after the game to give you all the great Clear the Ice reporting. And then we'll, as I said, we're going to be doing Clear the Ice through March 31st and then shutting it down for the season and focusing solely on the Fightins final. So, again, we're growing. We're growing. Can't wait. Barbara, what's going on? Oh, I hope you do, Barbara. I hope you are able to make it in tonight. I missed you here last week. Hope you're here. I'm a Bobby Clark guy, but Bobby needs to take the Lindros situation on the chin. He never protected Lindros like Clark had Schultz and Lindros had himself. Mike says, I'm a Bobby Clark guy, but Bobby needs to take the Lindros situation on the chin. He never protected Lindros like Clarky and Schultz and Lindros had himself. Yeah, I mean, I remember that time, Mike. It was there's probably 2 schools of thought here. Obviously, what the Flyers did with Lindros, was it the concussion situation? It was also that punctured lung thing he dealt with. Remember back in the day where he punctured his lung and almost died? Wasn't it Keith Jones he was rooming with that caught it? Listen, it was a bad situation. Lindros, for as great as he was, obviously had some issues with the concussions. It cut his career short, especially later on in his career. I'm not going to sit here and defend Bobby Clark for what happened. Was there some shenanigans going on? Did the Flyers try to, get Lindros back up on the ice? Yeah, I probably did. All right, but again, and I'm not saying it's right, but look at the era of hockey that Clark grew up in. Bobby Clark would make it about 5 minutes as a GM today because he could not like wrap his head around the modern day athlete. He couldn't figure them out. And even in that generation that Eric Lindros was in, they were starting to soften on all that stuff, and he was having problems with it. So I'm not blaming that. I'm not saying that's an excuse. I'm not giving Clark a pass, but I can understand where the miscommunication was, or where the gap was. Again, I'm not saying it's right. I'm not, but I can understand the line of thinking. And Bobby Clark should have educated himself more and should have been more open to the dangers of concussions. But those were relatively unknown at that time in all sports. Now, if more attention was paid to them back then, maybe we wouldn't have the problems that we have now, or we wouldn't have the equipment we have now that could mitigate them. So, I mean, there's two ways to look at it all, but I agree with you. You're right. He probably needed to take it on the chin a little bit with Lindros and be a little bit more patient. And I'm sure it wasn't easy dealing with his dad as the agent. I mean, come on. I'm sure that wasn't easy. But the relationship definitely soured pretty badly. And for those Flyer fans that don't remember that, it was definitely a weird time when Lindros basically was kind of, ostracized off the Flyers island and, eventually traded. But yeah, no, I agree with you, Mike. I do. I agree with you 100%. All right. So on that note, let's look at what we're going to talk about. So let's talk about the birds. And let's talk about the venom. And the known plan now, right? I mean, with last week at this time, it was pretty kind of up in the air. What is Howie going to be doing? What's the offseason plan for the Eagles? What are they focused on? And obviously, a week later, we can kind of narrow that down. They're focusing on 2026. I mean, is that safe to say? And is that fair to say? They're focusing on 2026. But I'm not saying they're abandoning 2025. I'm not saying they're saying 2025 is out the window. We're done. Moving on to 2026. They're not. They have a plan for 2025, and that is to, play a lot of the young players. And of course, that's been a topic that's sort of risen up throughout the week as these players were jettisoned off this team and more were leaving trades and all that. Then the topic started to kind of go full circle around to the young players, the drafted players. And my favorite topic rose to the forefront, and that was Howie Roseman's drafting ability. And about how, well, we don't need per se a Mekhi Becton because we have Steen, or we don't need an Isaiah Rodgers because we have a Keely Ringo, or we don't need C.J. Gardner-Johnson because we have a Sidney Brown. We don't need those players because we have younger players that are ready to step into that breach and fill that gap, because Howie has drafted so perfectly over the last few seasons. And of course, I'm going to push back on that. All right. I don't necessarily think this is this is a plan, and I understand the plan, and I understand that he's gearing up for some issues in 2026 when it comes to salary cap, when it comes to contracts. And he feels, and probably more importantly, hopefully more importantly, his coaches feel that there's certain players on this team that are ready to take that step. But how confident is Eagles Nation, to include the homers, that this is the right plan? And this is the right plan, not necessarily for the Eagles, but the right plan for the defending Super Bowl champions. We talk dynasty. The D word was mentioned a lot after the Super Bowl. Within minutes after the Eagles beating the Chiefs, I heard the D word in dynasty. Is this the actions? Are these the actions of a dynasty team? Right? Are the Eagles heading into this particular moment in early March or mid-March? Are they still the best in the NFL on paper? I would say no. But of course, you don't play the game on paper. And of course, we ain't playing a game for another 6 months. So things might change, and players are going to get opportunities. But along those lines of giving the younger players some chances and the drafting ability of said Howie friggin' Roseman, here's the thing. Vic Fangio said this throughout the season, and he said it multiple times. If a player, no matter who it is, shows that he or she, or he, that's no she is, but he should play, then they would play. And we saw that in Jalix Hunt. We saw that in a little bit at the end in Jeremiah Trotter. I didn't see that with Keely Ringo. I don't think the guy broke into the starting lineup at one point. And I'm sure he got on the field to some opportunities, but sporadically. But he didn't necessarily make a case for himself in 2024 to play. right? Steen was, in and out. There was questions about what they were going to do with him. There's questions about his run blocking ability, his pass blocking ability, right? I didn't see him breaking down the door. All right. So I'm not saying here that the plan is bad. I just don't know if it's the right plan for the defending Super Bowl champions. Are you punting on 2025? Are you telling the Philadelphia Eagle fan base who's desperate? Now, again, 2 Super Bowl champions, and everybody throws this back in my face. So 3 Super Bowl appearances in 8 years, 7 years, and 2 championships. It's true. 2 Super Bowl championships. I'm going to throw it another way. 2 Super Bowl championships in 59 years. How does that sound? Does that sound a little bit different than 2 in the last 7? Right? I mean, we can never have enough of these. And the big thing on the T-shirts and the hoodies and the sign hanging out in front of the link is the 2 Lombardis next to each other. I thought this was a motif we were following, right? 3 now, 4, 5, 6, 7, so on and so forth. This is what we wanted as Eagle fans. This is what we are supposed to have, is an opportunity to live in the Eagles dynasty. I've been saying it for years. Why can't we have a dynasty? Is this the actions of a GM that wants to present and provide you a dynasty by trading away 6 very, very key members of the 2024 Super Bowl championship team? And should the Eagle fan base accept it? Now, I'm also a big fan of building through the draft. And I think you build sustained winning and you build dynasties and you build all those great things through the draft. And if Howie Roseman indeed has done his job and these players are ready to step in, maybe it's the right plan. But I have some numbers for you, and I'm going to put them up here. All right, so it's a quick glance at Howie's drafting ability from 2016 to 2024. All right, this is just a quick little excerpt from my research because I keep track of this stuff. Now, I don't give Howie Roseman credit for any drafts prior to 2016. I don't. Because I don't think he was the voice, the lone voice or the final voice during those years. Not at all. You're not going to sell me on the fact that he had any say in the drafts when Andy Reid was here. And we certainly know he didn't have any say in the draft when Chip Kelly was here. So from 16 to 24, this is Howie's draft record in a nutshell. 9 drafts, 66 players. 26 of those 66 players as of today are still on this team, 39% of them. 33 of them have been busts, which are 51%. So over half of Howie's draft picks have been considered busts. 19 have been hits. And I think that number down there is 14 that are still undecided because we haven't had a chance to grade them completely out. Those are not numbers to me that pull in a lot of confidence to have a youth movement on the defending Super Bowl champions. Those are not holistic numbers that I'm getting excited about by running this thing back and saying, Keely Ringo, you're in charge, or Jeremiah Trotter Jr., you're the starting linebacker. Those are not numbers. Now, do those numbers support a team that could go potentially 7 or 10-7 or, 9-7, 9-8, whatever the case may be, and maybe back into a wild card? Yeah, I mean, listen, there's enough talent on this team, but we're talking to defend a Super Bowl championship. And these numbers, to me, if we're going with the youth movement, don't support that. Now, Howie has hit. He has. And he's hit on some known prospects. He's hit on some known commodities. He has not swung and missed at a first-round draft pick since Jordan Davis. Well, let's be honest. That was a miss. But prior to that, he hasn't really swung and missed on a first-round draft pick since Jalen Reagor, and I will give you that. And that's fine. That's great. And that's key to this whole thing. That's probably one of the reasons why they won the Super Bowl. But beyond the first round, beyond that, is Howie the guy and his drafting? Is that what we're looking for? Is that the best plan going forward for the defending Super Bowl champs? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. And obviously, as I said, hopefully Howie has spoken to his coaches and spoken to all his people. And they said, yeah, we can work with Keely Ringo. We can work with Brown. We can work with Trotter. We can work with these guys, and we can get them up to snuff. Eagles have brought in some more depth pieces as well over the weekend. Nothing to get overly excited about. And then we had the draft coming up here in a few weeks or in a month or whatever. They're going to add some more players, and then they have a boatload of draft picks for next year too. So Is this the right plan? And that's all I'm asking. Is this the right one for the defending Super Bowl champions? It's probably the right plan for the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's the right plan for the Carolina Panthers. But is it the right plan for the defending Super Bowl champions? And that's a question that I think needs to be debated, because I don't know if that's the right plan. Steve, how you been, man? They have put more pressure on themselves to have a good draft and may have taken away some of their negotiating leverage on draft day. Yeah, they have. Now, I get it. You can't, and I hear it all week. Oh, you can't pay everybody. You can't, the money doesn't grow on trees. Yeah, of course. But what has Howie always done? Where's this masterful cap management of Howie Roseman in 2025? It's not there because we've reached the end of the road. The can can't get kicked anymore, apparently, in 2025. We got to exit off this road and get onto another road for 2026. So where's these cap people out? The cap, all Howie does is manage the cap wisely. I mean, he did, but apparently not for 2025. Not at the expense of 6 main contributors to a Super Bowl team. I don't know, Steve. You tell me. This tells me they have identified both Nolan Smith and Jalen as must-pays in the next few years. So Nolan Smith, yes. Jalen Carter, yes. Listen, but why is there a rush on any of this? I keep hearing you got to pay Jalen Carter next year or in 2026. No, you don't. Jalen Carter was drafted in 23. So 23, 24, 25, 26. He's got a 5th-year option because he's a rookie. Oh, he's a first-round pick. And then, yes, you could franchise him in year 6. So there's no rush to pay Jalen Carter. And maybe Jalen Carter isn't all world or all universe. And the same thing with Nolan Smith. We're rushing out to pay Nolan Smith based off of 1 season. Now, Jalen Carter has had 2 good seasons. But let's see a little bit more consistency. Why are we such a rush to pay these players off? Again, Saquon Barkley. You all were in this room high-fiving each other saying Saquon was a great signing. That Saquon Barkley contract did not need to have happened. There was no reason that contract extension was given. There was no need for it. Maybe that money could have been used to keep one of these 6 in the nest, right? So again, I get you got to try to lock down Jalen Carter, make him happy, and Nolan Smith, but are we getting, let's not rush to judgment on neither one of these players. Let's see Jalen Carter do it again next year. Let's see Jalen Carter do it again without a Brandon Graham or without a Josh Sweat or without a Milton Williams standing next to him. Let's see Jalen Carter dominate that way. And then maybe you break the bank on him if he can continue to play at that level. But maybe Jalen Carter was a product of his environment, and maybe Zach Bond was also a product of his environment. Everybody's just banking on Jalen Carter and Zach Bond to kind of continue where they left off, playing behind a completely revamped defensive line. That might not be as seamless as people are thinking it's going to be. Same thing with Nolan Smith. Can I get more than 1 good year from Nolan Smith before we start crowning him contract extension worthy? And what's wrong with playing out these damn rookie contracts to the end? There's nothing wrong with that. They're a certain length for a certain reason. You can do the 5th-year option on both Carter and Smith because they're both first-round players. Say it, man. So quick. So quick. I understand losing Sweat and Williams, not like I wanted to lose them both. But the contracts that Becton and Rodgers got, I think if Howie wanted to, he could have worked a little magic. I think he could have. And again, does the Saquon Barkley extension factor into any of this? Is there? Maybe I should have done the research before coming on, but does that factor? Does his money, his cap hit on that new contract, does that factor at all into 2025? It probably doesn't, but maybe it does. I don't know. It just, I think Howie's smelling himself for a GM that's high-fiving for a hit on Quinyon Mitchell. Now, again, maybe Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean are also affected by a revamped defensive line. We've talked about this before. Your secondary is only as good as your D-line is. Your secondary is only as good as the push you're getting. How are they going to withstand this new D-line? Are they going to be exposed a little bit? But on paper, after 1 year, I'll give you Quinyon Mitchell. I'll give you Cooper DeJean. I'll give you Jalen Carter. I will give you Nolan Smith for 1 year. I'll give you those players. right? I will. But other than that, I mean, those were all first, second round guys. They were top of the draft type guys. These are guys that I could have picked out correctly as a football guy. I'm more concerned about, as we move into this, instilling Keely Ringo into the lineup. Sidney Brown, who's got a terrible tackling ability ratio or missed tackle stat, whatever it is. I'm more concerned about how they factor. And Jeremiah Trotter, how does he factor into maybe being a full-time linebacker? Because Nakobe Dean won't be ready at the beginning of the season, and I think we're putting too much pressure on the defensive coordinator to work some magic. It's not magic they work. It's called coaching and scheme. And the player, I know it sounds weird, but the player needs to have ability. He does. And the coach needs to find a way to bring that ability out. Now, what's some of the new players? Ochi, the linebacker from Kansas City. Is he going to be the new starter next to Zach Bond to start the season? Because I don't know if Nakobe Dean's going to be ready. Is he the new starter? And how do they work together? Again, there's more to this than just just put this guy in there, just put that guy in there. Go. There's more to that, and you guys know that there's a lot more. There's a lot more that goes into this stuff. So and then as far as keeping Rodgers, I mean, you can never have enough depth in the secondary. The Eagles got hammered on the secondary in the offseason. They've lost so much out of that. That was a position that was, I guess turned the corner in 2024, but now is back in the crapper. And keeping Rodgers in. Now they brought in the guy from was it Jackson, Dory Jackson from the Giants to be the new Isaiah Rodgers. Does he fit that role? Probably. Right? Probably does. Becton's more of another interesting situation. Does Tyler Steen now have to be that guy? Is he the new guy? And can he be the new guy? So we're stoutling you. We're putting a lot of pressure. Don't forget, a new offensive coordinator too. You're putting a lot of pressure on your coaches. A player has to have talent too. I want to stress that. They have to have talent too. Well, they got 5 picks in the top 100 picks in the 2026 draft. The Eagles have third-round draft picks next year. Draft their own third for Reddick, third for Compensor Williams. So Howie has some ammo. Yeah, he does. He's got some ammo. Well, here's the thing, though. I don't know if you can trade. I don't know this for a fact, but the comp picks for 2026 have not been announced. And they won't be announced until next year. I don't know if you can trade those moves or trade those picks in this draft. I don't know if you can move a 2026 compensatory pick that you don't know what number it's going to be or where and what round it's going to be. I don't know if you can do that until they're announced. I'm not sure. And then saying that you have a third for Williams and a third for Reddick, I don't know if that's the case either. I don't know. Aren't those comp picks based on performance of these players in their new digs? So I'm not certain that you can move comp picks in 26 in the 25 draft. I don't know. Maybe you can. But you're right about it. They are going to have a lot of like assets. But again, we're trusting a guy in Howie Roseman who has hit on drafts, but has those hits been fugazis? Because look, here it is again. All right, I'm going to put it up again. 9 drafts, 66 players, 26 picks are still on the team. 33 of them have been busts. Over half of the draft picks Howie has made have not worked out. And we're asking him now to go into the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round and pluck out constant jewels? Just saying. Is it the right move for the defending Super Bowl champions? Good question. That needs to be asked. Honestly. Not homerously. Honestly. So. And I'm all flopping all over. Hang on. Where are we at? Feels like step backwards for a bigger step forward in 26 and 27. We'll find out just how some of these coaches and players really are. So, Steve, are you okay with that? Are you okay with a punt on 2025 in March? Wouldn't you want the Eagles to come out and defend your Super Bowl championship? Wouldn't you want the Eagles come out with the best possible product on the field to try to win another Super Bowl? Or is that going to be the narrative of 2025 if things do kind of go off the rails? Well, we knew this was going to happen because they got rid of all their assets and they're stockpiling draft picks, but we'll be back. I don't know, man. Again, I don't know if these are the right moves you make as defending Super Bowl champions. Now, there was some change that was going to happen. I agree. But all this change, it's a lot, man. It's a lot. I think they're leaving themselves room for a in-season trade or even a preseason trade when someone gets desperate. Yeah. I mean, yeah, but who are we trading for? Another depth piece? Because if we're not in on making moves now, how can we bring on contracts later? You know what I mean? I understand what you're saying, but I think they're more, going to wait for the post-camp cut down day and try to pick up players that way. Listen, Steve, I hear what you're saying, but I don't. If they would do that, then why are they not signing big time players now? I just don't understand. I don't think that big trade's coming. I don't think that big signing's coming. I don't think that's in the picture in 2025. This is what they're going to be. That's all I'm saying. There's not a big name coming here. And I'm pretty confident in saying that right now. So I disagree. There might be a trade for a depth guy. There might be a trade for some more depth pieces, but there's no big name coming here. And who would that be? And why wouldn't they, if they're going to trade for somebody, why wouldn't they just go and sign somebody? Because they're going to have to inherit a contract anyway. Can they do that? So I disagree with that point. I think this is who they are. And if someone gets hurt for the season, well, no, that changes the things. But even if someone gets hurt, I don't see him making a big move. I think it's okay to start saying that they're not making big moves. And I think it's okay. I really do. You're the Super Bowl champions. You shouldn't really have to make too many of those big moves. And I wasn't expecting them to. But I truly was not expecting them to be losing as much as they lost. And that's been a lot. So is the youth movement, I guess we're calling it, the right move for the 2024 Super Bowl 59 defending Stanley Cup. Yeah, way ahead of myself on that one. Defending Super Bowl champions. So here you are. Here's the 6 that are no longer here. The 6 main ones. There's more that are left. But these are 6 individuals that were heavy contributors to the Eagles' success in 2024. And as I said on the thing here, is this how championship dynasties are born? Even the homers can't believe that, right? And I stand by that. Is this how championships dynasties are born? I don't think so. Now, will they make the playoffs? Yeah, probably. Are you going to ask a lot more of your offense in 2024 or 25? Can your offense step it up? That's going to be a great question. And what does Howie say when he has to face the people? Right? What does he say about defending his Super Bowl championship with a bunch of depth pieces and rookies? And should Philadelphia accept that? Good questions. All good questions that I don't have the answers for. He may learn a lesson on not having enough adults in the room, though. He may learn a lesson on not having enough adults in the room. So basically, you're saying Howie's not learned anything. He's still back in his own, I'm the smartest guy in the room. He's still operating off of that motif, Steve? Is that what you're saying? So you're saying that Howie gets lucky and he's not truly a good architect in building football teams? Because I believe, and I agree with you, I think Howie Roseman gets lucky all the time. I think he's the luckiest man in football. He's not the greatest man in football. He's the luckiest man. I think you can go through 2017 and 2024, and it was luck. And the stars aligned both years for the Eagles to win the Super Bowl. Howie's not a winner. He's not. He doesn't know how to build winners. He knows how to build luck and cash in on luck. But how can you sell it to the fans of Philadelphia? How can you sell it to the diehard fans who bleed with this team on a daily basis that you're going to punt on a title defense? That you're going to say, you know what? In order to prepare ourselves for a good 26 and 27, I am not going to bring back 6 main factors of our Super Bowl champion. I'm not saying you had to bring them all back. You could have brought 3 of them. Gardner Johnson could still be here. You could have kept him and signed 2 of them. And that's all you would have probably needed to do for an attempt of running it back to try the title defense. How do you sell that to the Eagles fan base? And the funny thing about it is 10 years ago, you couldn't sell it to the Eagle fan base because they call you out on your BS. Today, with the way the homers have taken over, you can sell them pretty much anything you want. And that's pathetic too. Because there's diehard Eagle fans that know what they're looking at is not right. There's diehard Eagle fans out there that are looking at something and they're like, I don't think this is going to work. But what are they doing? They're blindly getting behind it because of the mystique and luck and the magic. These words that I hear all the time now when you describe Howie Roseman. Oh, they did it once, they can do it again. We said the same thing coming out of 2017, and it didn't work out. I thought this year was supposed to be different. I thought this title defense was supposed to be different. The Eagles are going to waste another opportunity to repeat as Super Bowl champions and truly bore us into the dawn of the Eagle dynasty. Because Howie Roseman mismanaged the cap. Because Howie Roseman mismanaged his salary. He kicked the can down the road, and it just happened to end in 2025, which just also happens to be a title defense season. But does anybody look at it that way? Again, I'm not, you know what? I applaud him for having a plan. I do. I don't think it's the right one. Not for what's at stake this year. I'm saying he learned his lesson about not losing your top 5 tacklers by signing Bond, but maybe at the cost of an overly young defense now. We will see. He already told us to trust. Are you trying to trigger me? And how much more? Because again, I hear this attached to Howie Roseman. Hall of Fame Howie Roseman. The great Howie Roseman. But yet, apparently, he's still learning lessons. He's still the student. When does he become the master instead of the student? When does Obi-Wan and Howie fight each other for that opportunity? When are we finally over with Howie learning lessons? Because you would think a guy that's won 2 Super Bowl championships now, by all intents and purposes, and there's been better GMs that have come along and that have not won 2 Super Bowl championships that can build a team a lot better than this fraud can. But at what point do you start saying, how much more do you got to learn, man? And why are we constantly going back here? So again, I think that's an obvious question too, Steve. Right? You know, and again, this will all be mute points. Keely Ringo could step in and become the next Eric Allen. Sidney Brown could be the next Wes Hopkins. Tyler Steen is the next I don't know, man. Who's Joe Walker? No, he was a defenseman. I don't know. Tyler Steen comes the next Mekhi Becton. There you go. We'll go that way. Maybe this is all for naught, and the coaches actually believe that these players can step in and be a seamless transition. Now, of course, they'll struggle probably out the gate. Probably more of a 2-2, 3-3, 4-3 type start until they hopefully turn it on. But again, is this the right plan? There's really good questions to ask, man. Steve chiming in again. But I think they went a tiny 2-bit Belichick this time. I just know it's really an incomplete grade until the draft happens. Okay. Yeah. Well, I would say it's even more of I don't know how the draft's going to tell you anything. I mean, we're not going to know how the draft picks work out until sometime in like November, right? So it's going to be going through the season pretty much from the beginning on blind like faith, which is fine for the homers. That's how they live their life. But for the rest of us out there, it's going to be tough, you know, looking at this type of stuff. But I just don't know how you sell it and not only then let's talk about this part of it too. Stop telling people. And I'm not saying you, Steve. I'm just putting this out here as a PSA. Stop telling people how to feel. If somebody wants to react negatively to Howie Roseman, let them react negatively. I'm so tired of the homers swooping in, trying to say that and defaming a certain side of the fan base because they're not happy with this, that they're concerned that this is not the right plan, that you're wasting an opportunity to win another Super Bowl based on what you're doing in the offseason, regardless of how much it's going to help us out in 26 and 27. I get that. But the windows of winning don't open or stay open forever. And if Howie Roseman really believes that he's setting the Eagles up for success for what? The next 2 out of 3 years? I mean, is that where we're going here? I don't know, but stop telling the fan base how to feel, or certain sides of the fan base how to feel. They can be critical. And it has nothing to do with the fact that we just won the Super Bowl. It has nothing to do with it. We're on to new business now. We're going to stop living in the past, right? So for the homers out there who think that they're so goddamn superior to everybody else, stop telling people how to feel. They can feel any way they want. And the reason why they're saying that is because they know the homers ain't stupid people. They're not. They're freaking robots, but they're not stupid people. And they know that the more people that complain, the more negative it looks on the city, and then the more negative the national media picks it up, and then we have a great old time. So that's where they want people to shut up. They don't want people to complain because they don't want to bring that attention to themselves. Deep down, every homer is feeling the same way, and they are. Every single one of them is feeling the same way that we are. Deep down, they just are afraid that they don't have courage enough to admit it, but they are feeling it. That's my opinion. On another note, it's time to pull the torts as head coach plug. I get we traded lots of players anyway, but the inconsistency is a bit disturbing this far into the torts era. Okay. Yeah, we're going to transition here in a second, Steve. I'll bring that back up, but it's a good point. And I guess we'll finish our Eagles topic tonight with, I guess, the question I started off with. Is this the right plan? And I mean that in multiple ways. Is this the right plan? Can we trust these players to do what they're supposed to do? And is this the right plan for the defending Super Bowl champions to be entering a title defense season in with a youth movement that may or may not have what it takes to win? So we'll see. It's not easy to win a Super Bowl. A lot of things have to go right. And the Eagles, had a great magical 2024, and, maybe not. Maybe some of the things that they worked for them last season don't work for them this year. We don't know, but you try to put yourself in the best possible position to win. But, I don't know if it's the right plan. I don't know if it's the right plan for the defending champions. It might be the right plan for the Panthers, the Jaguars, the Giants, the Cowboys, the Commanders, the Bears, the Lions, everybody else. But for the Super Bowl champions, is this the right plan? So, with Steve bringing up, and let's bring that bad boy back up, Flyers. That's right. Flyers had themselves an interesting weekend. They beat Tampa the other night, and then they got blown out by Carolina last night. As we are limping to the end of yet another lost season. And Steve brings up a question that I assume is going to be a lot more heavier topic over the next couple months than it is now, but it'll probably get heavy. Is it time to pull the plug on John Tortorella as the head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers? And Steve, you're going to be flabbergasted by my response. I don't think so. No, I don't. You mentioned a couple of things. You mentioned that we traded away lots of players. And you also mentioned the inconsistencies. Okay. And I agree with both. I agree. But I harken back to the, who was the Brown, the coach of the Sixers during the process, Brett Brown. I harken back to those years when the Sixers were outwardly tanking, right? We gave Brett Brown a lot of time and a lot of wiggle room, and we really didn't evaluate him until we actually had a basketball team around him. I'm kind of giving Tortorella the same sort of carte blanche. I can't make a true evaluation on John Tortorella until he has a hockey team in front of him. He hasn't had a hockey team in 2 years. He's had young players who are growing into themselves. He's had players that are trying to see if they do work, but we haven't had what resembles a hockey team in 2 years. Right now, and I think one of the positives, and maybe the only positives you can pull out of this season, was the fact that we found a legitimate third line. in Forrester Brink and the hell's the other one? Cates. Good God. Forrester Brink and Cates. We found a third line. But we're still, management didn't set Torts up for any success. We went in with the same team that we went in with last year, and minus the starting goalie. We, the whole Carter Hart thing. By the way, that trial starts April 22nd. Did you guys know that? The Carter Hart thing with the sexual assault? April 22nd, the trial begins. But we went with the same exact team, So I don't know what exactly people wanted Tortorella to do this season, other than what he's done. I mean, the Flyers, the wheels are falling off now, and they are, and they haven't been the same team that they were last year. That's evident. That was evident early on. I'll give you that. There's certain aspects of this team that were not measuring up to what they did even last year. Now, is that Tortorella's fault? Yeah, maybe. But I still think he's getting everything he can out of certain players. I don't know who's going to come in here and get more out of Owen Tippett. I don't know who's going to come in here and get anything out of Jamie Drysdale. Tortorella didn't bring Tippett here, didn't bring Drysdale here. No, Danny B did, right? It's just an opportunity, or it's just a situation where players are kind of learning how to grow. Once we get 4 lines, and I mean 4 legitimate hockey lines, then I'll make an assessment on John Tortorella. 4 lines, a legitimate starting defense, and a starting goalie. And that's the bigger problem, Steve, is that we are 2 years into a rebuild, and we are nowhere near any of that. That, to me, is the bigger issue, is that, the head coach be damned. Let's give him a product to be evaluated with. Where's the product? We're trading assets, we're moving assets, we're accumulating assets, but we're not picking players up. And yeah, we're going to go into this draft with 7 picks in the first 2 rounds, potentially. The 7th most at this particular moment in time, 7th most salary cap in the NHL, which, judging by the 25 free agent class, is not good, because the class sucks. It's old. It's a class of older players. I don't know if any of these fit Flyers' long-term situation, but with salary cap, you can also maneuver trades and bring on contracts. So before I pull the plug on Tortorella, I need to see the GM do something. Everyone says, well, Danny B has done an amazing job. At what? It's done an amazing job at accumulating assets. One of those assets is going to materialize as players on the ice. And we got draft capital. I don't know if you guys done a deeper dive into the 2025 NHL draft. I have. I do it every night on this program. We go over a player or so. After about pick 4 or maybe 5, that's it for day one people. Everybody else is going to the minors or going to college or going to the back up to Canada, the CHL or USHL or wherever. But after pick 5, you're done with your day one guys in terms of day one plug and play guys in the NHL. Everybody else is going to be a project. That's just the way this draft is. So the Flyers, unless they move all the way up to about 5, 4, 3, or 2, or 1, are not going to get a day one impact in this draft. Everybody understand? Is everybody conditioning themselves for that? They're not getting a day one impact player unless they go all the way up to like one or 2 and get James Haggins or the other kid, Hesley. Unless they get one of those 2, they're not going to get a day one guy. They're going to get another project guy. And all 7 of their first round, second round picks, if that's what they take, are going to be project guys. Now, hopefully Danny B starts moving some of those assets for actual players that can go onto an NHL roster in 2025 and bring in maybe some trades to bring in some players that could actually round out a roster. Because right now we have a third line and that's about it. A third line and pieces everywhere else that we're plugging and playing. And to Tortorella's credit, and I don't think he should be criticized for this, he's trying to split the atom and find out what works. And it's hard because the talent is just not where it needs to be on this hockey team. And that's not the head coach's fault. The head coach has brought as much talent out of these players that I think anybody could have. So in that case, I disagree with your point there, Steve. Now, does Tortorella have a shelf life? Yeah. But I need to see Tortorella actually coach a hockey team before I can make an assessment whether or not he needs to be fired. Because don't forget, we got to add starting goalie into the mix again. We need a starting goalie. We need a defenseman. We need more. Everyone says we just need one lockdown D. No, we need like 3 of them. Our D core has regressed the most in 2025 than anything, and than any other skill group on this team or position group on this team. The defense has regressed the most. It's been pathetic. We need impact players. Scheme, coaching, yes, okay, it matters, but you need to have talent, just like the Eagles. We can say all day long that Jet Lachenko is ready to play because he was selected the 12th, 13th overall. Where's he at? He's in the friggin' CHL right now. He's not ready to play. You can coach him up as much as you want. He's got to have talent, and the Flyers need known talent. And I'm not buying this anymore about, oh, Danny B, give him some time. No, I'll be giving him 2 years. Now it's time to start accumulating players. We need players on this team. No more fragmented lines. And where does Travis Konecny disappear to over the last month? Right? That big 8-year contract and then part of the future. Yeah, well, he ain't doing nothing. We need to find 3 more lines. Complete lines, no more of this mixing and matching crap, no more breaking lines apart mid-game, breaking them different lines every game. I need 4 set lines, and we have one, we have the 3rd line, but we need to build the others. So before we do that, I think we got to hold off on the firing of John Tortorella. This is my opinion. Because Torts is a good coach, there's no doubt. I just don't see enough growth from enough players. Maybe there's only so much blood. That's exactly right. Steve, are you kidding me? You haven't seen enough growth? I don't know how much. Who could have pulled? Now, there is one player that is boggling my mind. That's Jamie Drysdale. I don't think he's any good. I just don't think he's any good. But look at the 3rd line. Look at the 3 players that are now part of what I think is the 3rd line of the future. He's pulled all that talent out of those 3. I'm going to give him straight credit for Cates, Brink, and Forrester. I was about ready to ship Forrester out of here last year. Right? Yeah, the mucker and grinder of winning battles in the corner and winning loose pucks. That's not what Forrester was brought here to do. He's brought here to score goals and be an offensive player. Finally, that happened this year. I mean, look at the growth from and to a lesser extent, look at the growth from Ristolainen over the last couple seasons. I mean, he's changed and developed. He's probably our most competent defender right now, which I don't know what that says about the Flyers. So I disagree. I think he has brought a lot of talent out and a lot of growth, and I think there's been a lot of growth. The problem is, I go back to this, and you said it yourself, you just can't squeeze blood from a stone. If they don't have it, they don't have it. And I think he's taken as much out as what can be taken out. It's just they can't win a Super Bowl this upcoming season. All the moves the Eagles made last year at this time, I bet people are feeling the same way. So Mike, I disagree. So you this is wrong on so many different levels. So Mike, when you win a Super Bowl, you kind of went up and above and beyond everything. And you've just taken 6 players from that team that were major contributors away from that. And now you're expecting to plug and play 6 different players, potential rookies, a new offensive coordinator, a whole new way of kind of doing things. And you're expecting them to roll out and win a Super Bowl. There's no way in chance this team wins a Super Bowl next year, Mike. And you know it as well as I do. It's not because they don't have talent. They do, but they don't have championship talent because of what was done. And they don't. And yeah, Zach Baun is the player that sort of rose up out of nowhere. Is there any other player I'm missing? Because we keep speaking of these multiple players that have come up out of nowhere. Zach Baun was the only one who kind of rose out of nowhere and had that amazing all-pro season. All right. Who else? Milton Williams was pretty good going into last season. Jalen Carter was pretty good going into last season. Nolan Smith had a bounce back year. Okay, so I'll give you 2 of them. Nolan Smith and Zach Baun. Am I missing anybody else? So I get what you're saying, though. And you're right. Maybe they can. I don't think they can. And I don't think it's the right way you go about trying to defend a title by taking players that haven't been able to fight their way into the starting rotation to begin with and then all of a sudden, yeah, no, they're ready. Let's go. I disagree with that. And I know change happens and you got to move players around. I'm just not buying that Keely Ringo, Steen, Sidney Brown. Who else am I missing that's going to have to play a lot? Trotter. They're going to seamlessly plug and play into the roles that these other players left. I disagree with that. But it really comes down to how the offense does. Right? Can Saquon Barkley rush for 3,000 yards this year, maybe, to offset the defensive problems? That's an awful lot to ask. I'm just saying, you cannot. Saquon's not going to rush for 2,500 yards this year. And the defense is probably not going to play anywhere near the way they played last year. And I'm not saying they're going to fall off a cliff, but they're probably going to come down, which is still probably a top 10 defense. But they were the number 1 defense last year, number 1 rushing offense. And those were key contributors to winning the Super Bowl. Not Jalen Hurts, number 1 rushing offense, number 1 defense. Those were the 2 key contributors to winning that Super Bowl. Without those 2 factors, they don't win the Super Bowl. And if the defense cannot miss a beat and Saquon can break off another 3,000-yard season, okay, we're in. But I don't see those 2 things happening. Based on the fact that Saquon, if he does it again, then Saquon needs to go into the Hall of Fame next year. And if the defense does not, you're telling me the defense is not going to miss a beat? Come on, man. Come on, Michael. What are you looking at, man? They've lost like 5 players off the starting defense. Come on, brother. Let's come back to reality a little bit, man. I'm not asking you to be like me, but come on. You're telling me that the number 1 overall, were they number 1 overall defense? They were. They were like I forget what numbers they were, but they were number 1 overall. You don't think they're going to miss a beat? Come on, man. And again, I'm not saying they're going to go from 1 to 31. They may go 1 to 10, and that's still a pretty damn good defense, but there's no way in hell they're winning the Super Bowl next year. And you know that as well as I do right now. There's too much change. I'm just saying, man. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But I don't know. I don't know, man. The regression of some players like York, yeah, and it bothers me. Again, I'm not saying Tortorell's perfect either. That's part of that makes me feel worse than I did in 93. Cam York has been an enigma, Mike, or Steve, sorry. I'm a big Cam York guy, and I'm losing faith in him too. Wasn't he a healthy scratch? I wouldn't be surprised if they moved Cam York in the offseason. Maybe he's not Mark Howell. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's not the next Mark Howell. But he has regressed bad. And maybe he's, maybe not having a Sean Walker or a Matt Niskanen type of guy has affected players like Cam York who are trying to learn how to be pros or defensemen. Maybe Ryan or Nick Seeler is not cutting it, his tutelage, and Eric Johnson wasn't cutting it, and Ristolainen, they can't understand each other. Maybe having a Sean Walker, maybe you bring in a veteran defender. Give York 1 more year. Bring in someone that's got some friggin' moss growing on him. Not like old man Winter, but, a veteran who still has some tread on the tire. Give him a year with Cam York and see what they can do together. I don't know, but you're right. Cam York has been definitely one of those players. If Hart is found guilty, do you bring him back? Well, Hart, if he's found guilty, if he's found not guilty, he's a restricted. He's a UFA. The Flyers did not tender him a contract when he was an RFA last summer, effectively making him an unrestricted free agent. So if he's found not guilty, and is allowed to come back to the NHL, I don't know. No. Crazy. How pathetic would that be, man? The Lions changed their OC. Yeah, but the Lions also didn't win the Super Bowl, Mike. Mike, come on. Mike, the Eagles won the Super Bowl. They rose to the top of the mountain. And now they're trying to stay up there. And with switching out 6 main contributors for 6 rookie/debt pieces, it's just, to me, not the way to do it. It's a lot to ask. It's a lot to ask, man. And you know in your heart they're not going to win a Super Bowl this year. When this retired, yeah, it did. It sent Provorov off the deep end. Most certainly did, Steve. I agree with you. But as far as the Flyers go, 68 games now into the season, ready to hang it up. A lot of potential. I don't know. I mean, there's something in the offseason. There's money to be spent. There's assets to be drafted. Danny B has a chance to really make some noise. And I'm not saying he's going to build a Stanley Cup this offseason, but he has a chance to get at least, I think next year, it's got to be playoffs. I mean, the Flyers got to take a step. There's got to be something on this team next year other than a bunch of let's see what they are type guys. We need some established guys. We need to start building this team. There needs to be a new core of players. Because what's the core here on this team? Is it the third line, Michkov? And that's it. I mean, we need to start branching out a little bit. And it's going to take too long to build this thing solely through the draft. We don't have that kind of patience here. I mean, we just don't. So I'm not saying abandon the draft and abandon developing players. Of course I'm not. But we need to kind of rob Peter to pay Paul a little bit. You need to start bringing players here. NHL players who can actually skate, and he doesn't have to teach them like it's preschool. Give Torts. I'm telling you, I don't think you can really evaluate him until he has a full team, and he doesn't have that yet. A lot like what Brett Brown went through in the process. So that's what I'm going with. You cannot miss 6 years in a row. No way. Well, you talking about the playoffs? That would be next year. Yeah, 6 years. Yeah, I don't think you can. You have to go to the playoffs next year. Yeah, I don't think the Flyer fan base has it in them. I don't think they've ever gone 6 years without getting in. I know they've done 5 a couple times. They've done 5 back in my youth a couple times. They can't do 6. I agree. I totally agree. But all right, my last topic before we're way behind here. Phillies, 11 days from opening day. 11 days from opening day. Actually, you know what? I do want to bring up some players before I move on. There was some Flyer prospects I want to talk about. That now that we're wrapping up the NCAA seasons and some of these like CHL teams are wrapping up their season, there's a potential the Flyers could bring some of these prospects back in this year. So let's take a look around in the Flyer prospect pool. Cole Knuble, who's finishing up his second year in Notre Dame. I mean, does he make the jump this year? I don't know if a third year for him in Notre Dame would be applicable. He could be potential, a potential player to bring in this spring. Alex Bump, another one, is finishing up his second year in Western Michigan. I think he probably stays for year 3. Owen McLaughlin, his third year in North Dakota. Noah Powell. Remember Noah Powell, second round pick from this past year's draft? Well, he committed to OSU, Ohio State, left Ohio State in January, and joined the Oshawa Generals of the OHL. Quit Ohio State midway through his like 2 months into his freshman year, hockey year, and signed with the Oshawa Generals of the OHL. Interesting move there, man, by the Flyers' second round draft pick. Said hell with this. I'm getting paid. He won't be coming anytime soon. Ty Murchison, his 4th year. This is it. He's done with Arizona State. He's got to come this spring. So he's coming. I don't probably go to Lehigh. And then Ryan McPherson, his first year is wrapping up at New Hampshire. So, I mean, it's decision time for some of these kids. It's decision time for some of the Flyers prospects with the Flyers management and decisions with these kids too. So, it's going to be interesting as we wrap up the other lower levels of hockey throughout America and North America. And these players now will have to start making decisions whether or not they're going to go pro or stay in college or stay in juniors for another year. And I think Cole Knuble could be a potential. I think he's ready. I mean, I don't know how much you would get more out of a third year at Notre Dame. Now, Notre Dame will be a finalist in the Final Four or Frozen Four, so they'll be hanging around for a couple more weeks. But I would not be surprised to see Cole Knuble make the jump this year. Yeah, you cannot miss 16. Oh, why am I putting that one back up? All right, so to the Phillies now. 11 days away from opening day. Max Kepler got dinged up a little bit in spring training over the weekend or yesterday. On Friday, the Phillies hosted their spring breakout game, which was all prospects, Flyers, Phillies prospects versus Pirates prospects. Mitch Goff has to take a big step. Denver Berkey has some. Oliver Bonk has to be at least. So I would be more surprised, or I would be surprised less if Oliver Bonk. I think he comes as well. I think Oliver Bonk, again, I don't know how much more you can learn in your fourth year or fifth year at major junior hockey. I don't know how much more Oliver Bonk needs to learn up there. As far as Barkey goes, Steve, the guy looks like he's about 14 years old. He needs to grow up a little bit, man. He needs to put on about 75 pounds, all muscle, and go through puberty. And once he does that, I can see him coming down. But no, I think he spends another year in London next year. But Bonk, yeah. Bonk, I could see going pro. But Bonk won't turn pro. I mean, he could, depending on how far London goes through the Memorial Cup playoffs. London's a pretty good team. They're always up there in the top. So we'll see. Well, we'll see when that move is made. But Oliver Bonk's got to be I think, has to be part of the future of the Flyers next season. If not the Flyers, the freaking Phantoms. He's got to go pro. It's time. Him, Knuble, it's time, I think. So we'll see more of these prospects as they develop. And, of course, the goaltending situation, I don't think any of those goalies are ready to come over yet, but we'll see later in the season and later into next season. But it's definitely time for a lot of these players as we approach spring to make decisions and management to make decisions about them. But off to the Phillies. Again, 11 days from opening day, and Max Kepler gets dinged up, and the prospects played themselves a hell of a game on Friday against the Pirates prospects. Great to see players like Crawford, Miller, Racones Jr., Tait, Disson played. I mean, these are Jordan Disson. These are players that you don't necessarily see every day. These are players that I spoke about and spent a lot of time covering and following. But it was great to see them play. It was great to see them get in. They won 5-3 on Friday. And now pretty much these players will go back to their camps, and some players will remain with the Phillies that they're kind of looking at. But for the most part, all the like Racones of the world are going to go back to their camps. But it was fun. But it definitely gives you sort of and then the pitching. You saw Moises Chase pitched, one of the prospect arms that the Phillies got in the Soto trade last year with Baltimore. You saw Seth Johnson pitch, another prospect arm that the Phillies got in the Soto trade last year, or was he part of the Dominguez trade? It was from Baltimore, but good to see those young players getting an opportunity. And I say this every year, and I'm going to say it again. I know here in the Delaware Valley, and I think it's like this I don't really follow any other minor league teams, but I think it's pretty much set up the same way. Allentown's an hour away. Reading is 45 minutes away. Lakewood is an hour, like half hour, 40 minutes away. Other than Clearwater, we have a unique opportunity in Philadelphia. You could go check out you can check out the AAA level, the AA level, and the high A level, all within an hour away from your home. And you can do it on a very affordable dime. And I highly suggest, if you don't want to deal with the rigmarole of Citizen Bank Park, of course, you got to go to a Phillies game at least once, but if you don't want to deal with the rigmarole, if you don't want to break the bank every time to take the family to a baseball game, go to a minor league game. Was it Coca-Cola Stadium or Pepsi Stadium, wherever the one up there in Allentown? It's got this old-timey Camden Yards look to it and feel to it. It's a great place to go watch games. There's not a bad seat in the house. Standing room, I think, are like $5 tickets, and you can go up to a bar area and sit along the railing and just enjoy it. Listen, I say this every year, and I'm going to say it again. I am a huge advocate for supporting the local minor league baseball teams in the area. And you get to look at the players that are going to affect this team very soon. And as we go through this summer, and we'll be doing our Down on the Farm Phillies segment on the Fight Is Final every Sunday. We're breaking those names down again. Tonight, we're going to start Phillies prospects on the Of the Night segment. So I highly recommend go and support the local minor league teams. You will not regret it. They have giveaways. They do dollar dog nights, these places. Like Citizen Bank Park, they still do dollar dog nights. So go and do what you got to do. Enjoy yourself. Get out there and support the minor leagues because it's fun. But we're getting through spring training, and it's almost over. I was not feeling the Phillies this time last year for longevity reasons, tied to age. Without bringing up Painter and more, I will feel the same. Listen, so was it 2 nights ago, Thursday night? We did a deep dive, Steve, of the Phillies, a semi-deep dive. We went over kind of some of the rotations, some of the lineup situations and whatnot. I'm still not feeling the Phillies at all. And maybe it's because I just don't believe that a team that's regressed over the last 3 years and did absolutely nothing to fix that in 2024 in the offseason is coming back with the same product, and then I expect them to win. Again, based in reality, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around that. They did not address any of the issues that plagued this team. Now, I shouldn't say that. I don't know if they've addressed those issues. I can't really judge by spring training, But plate discipline, obviously, is something that we're going to be able to see early on. Have they addressed that? Are they going to tweak the lineup? And more importantly, if they do tweak the lineup, are they going to stick with it? The bullpen without the bullpen by committee, that's doomed. That's a doomed technique, a doomed procedure. And those who follow it are doomed to fail. So is that going to change? So, all these things are common stuff that we talked about year after year after year that are still here. That's what I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around the 2025 Phillies. Are there some potential? Yeah. We got some potential arms. We got some potential, pitchers, but potential. Is this, again, I'm talking about how does the defending Super Bowl champion, is that the way you go into a defense of a Super Bowl championship by losing 6 core members of your team? You're a team that's 3 years removed away from a World Series appearance, and you've done nothing to tweak that. You've done nothing to fix that, to get you over the hump. Is this what you do? You regressed on all fronts over the last 3 years. The next step making the playoffs and losing the wild card round? Is that where we're at? Is that what we're up to right now? I guess it is, right? Is losing in the wild card round, and then next year not making the playoffs? Is that how it goes? So we'll see. But I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around. But on March 23rd, Steve, and everybody else that's paying attention tonight, I, along with the other Fightin's Final staff members, will reconvene for our Phillies 2025 season preview episode at 11 a.m. next Sunday here on the It's a Wrap Sports Network, as we will break down everything that I just said and more as we get ready for the 2025 Philly season. So hopefully you're there. I pray to God you are. It's must-see TV. It's must-see TV. Michael. So Bryce Harper went to management last season. Okay. So Bryce Harper went management at last season's trade deadline, and he asked them to get a Pete Alonso, and Bryce said he would play in the outfield. I know he said that during the offseason that the Phillies signed Pete Alonso, or allegedly said this, that if they signed Pete Alonso, he'd go to the outfield. Yeah, I would have definitely been in on that. And as this offseason sort of developed, and Alonso was still hanging around out there, I think it was Alonso and Bregman were the last two to fall. I was not in on any one of them to start the offseason. But when the Phillies absolutely did nothing to address nothing, and then we got to the end, and I'm looking at Alonso and Bregman, I'm like, yeah, which one? Somebody get me one of them. I didn't care. I would have taken Pete Alonso in a heartbeat. Absolutely would have taken him in a heartbeat. But we didn't. And we're stuck with the same group, which is interesting and frustrating. I had fun telling Jeff Jackson we should have taken Frank Thomas back in 92. Did you really? Were you shouting him over the fence or something? Stott needs a massive bounce back. He does. And I've seen a lot of mock lineups that have him batting 6th. What are we doing? Listen, does he project at 6? Could he be 6? Yeah, he could be. He's got to work his way to that, man. He's got to start 8 or 9 in any lineup. Until he proves otherwise, he's got to start 8 or 9. There's no way in hell you put Stott 5th or 6th in any lineup until he proves he can handle that. I mean, baseball has not changed that much. Bryson Stott's not a 6-hole guy. He's an 8, 9, or 1, right? Am I off the res? Am I wrong? Has baseball passed me by? There's no way he's a 5 or a 6. I'm not seeing that, man. It better not be 20. That would be a no. I don't think so. No, there's no signs of that, is there, Steve? No, not yet. I mean, we're getting there. I mean, look at it. We got Schwarber and Real Muto potentially playing in their final years as Phillies. I think they signed one of them. I think one of them gets retained, and it's probably Schwarber. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely starting some change. I agree. He expects fully stocked and poor. Oh man, you ain't kidding. We talked about it this morning, actually. So I can kind of tease this, and I will. So the primary Fighting's final staff is going to be me, Sal, and Mike Lauro. We're going to be your primaries. But Pat Bernard will be doing some spot work for us in relief. Steve Fuentes also will be doing some spot work in relief. And our man of our Friday night guy, our City Connect Friday night guy, Big Al Zafiri. That's right. Big Al will be doing primarily Friday night baseball for the Fighting's final in 2025. So you will definitely be hearing, oh yeah, the Emporium will stay stocked. I 100% agree with you there, Steve. But that is tentatively how the Fighting's final will be looking in 2025. But I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. I can send you the article if you want. Oh, about Bryce Harper going to management during the trade. I mean, maybe he did. I didn't hear that. I'm just saying. I had heard that he went there during the offseason and said, if you want to sign him, I'll go to the outfield. Now, if that's the second time he said something to the management about Pete Alonso and they failed to do anything, maybe he's got a thing for Pete Alonso and really thinks that Alonso's is going to put the team over the edge. It could be very well. It could have happened. Started. Yeah, I agree. On this team is an 8 because I think Marsh is 9. But until he proves otherwise, right, Mike? I mean, I'm not saying he can't bat 6. Maybe he can. I doubt it. But he's got to prove himself, right? He hasn't proved that yet. So you start him at 8 or 9. I don't. I thought you were working till 11 tonight. The Phillies' downfall has been Robbie's, as there's no accountability for him. That's true. And I did a thing earlier in the offseason, or earlier in the spring training, was whose seat is hotter starting 2025, Dave Dombrowski's or Rob Thompson's? And I think you can make an argument for both. I think Dombrowski's seat should be, I think it's Dombrowski's, honestly, because he's kind of set this in motion right now. It's his, his thing. But yeah, Rob Thompson's also the cannon there. You're right. I'm not a Rob guy. I know you're not. Yeah, I agree. So listen, we could talk forever, but we got to get to the other night segment because the show has gone on for an hour and almost an hour and a half, which is good. But let's get through the other night segment. Let's go. Yep. The other night segment, the portion of the show where we talk about a Flyers draft pick, a Phillies draft pick, a Flyers prospect, a Phillies prospect. It's not. I'm still in the air. Come here. Come here. I am still in the air. I'm arguing with you in front of a live studio audience. We talk about a Phillies prospect, a Flyers prospect, MLB draft target, or an NHL draft target, and we just had some fun with it. So let's get it going tonight. We're back to the trifecta, and we're going to introduce a new portion of the program, and we're going to talk Phillies prospects tonight. Mick Abel, my boy, that's right, probably the most forgotten about Phillies prospects, as he is looking to enter his 6th year in the Phillies minor league system if he doesn't make the team. So far for the Phillies in the spring, an inning and a half pitch, 4 hits, 4 runs, 3 earned, 1 walk, 1 strikeout, no homers, and an illustrious 16.20 ERA for Mick Abel. Abel still possesses many of the qualities that made him a top draft prospect, with 4 or 5 quality pitches coming from his 6'5" frame. His fastball velocity dipped a bit in 24, but he was still touching 98 miles an hour and averaging 94.6, with his 4-seamer missing a decent amount of bats with it. He also needed his 2-seamer that generated more contact to the ground. In 2023, his curve, now thrown in the 81 to 84 range, was the better of 2 breaking balls. But last year, his mid-80s slider was a more consistent option, especially in terms of landing it for strikes. I said this at the end of last season. I thought Mick Abel had himself a kind of a renaissance year. Started out the season pretty weak, but then he kind of came on strong for AAA for Lehigh Valley. Ended up being my AAA Lehigh Valley pitcher of the year for his cumulative work down there in Lehigh Valley. He throws hard. Is he a starter? Maybe not anymore. Could he potentially help us out in the bullpen somewhere? I would say yeah, because he can throw hard. I would not be surprised. And honestly, I want the Phillies to give him a shot this year. If just to find out what we have. It's either the time to move on or move up for Mick Abel, the former 2020 first-round draft pick. And it's time. 6 years in the minor leagues is too long for a first-round pick. It's like entering Mickey Moniak status. So it's time for Mick Abel to get his shot at the major league level. Robbie and Dave Dombrowski. Yeah, they're both. I agree. Abel's a Rule 5 write-off unless you try to chime in. Steve, I just said that. But yeah, so there you go. There's our first of the 3. Let's now go to our Phillies spotlight player of the night, Armando Sosa. For sneakily over the last couple seasons, Sosa's been pretty solid in his role as a utility guy all over the field. 90 games last season, a 257 batting average, 7 homers, 31 RBIs, and a very respectable 735 OPS. Will come into the role of utility player again this year. Will be leaned on heavily again by the Phillies. The Phillies got it right with him in terms of a utility player. He's like the prototypical book definition of a utility player. Will probably serve a key role in giving multiple players days off throughout the season, and a very hard role. I mean, he's the Greg Gross of the 21st century, and it's not easy because they got to play the field and bat. So Armando Sosa looking to be another impact player, and I think it's a good player for the Phillies. I really do. He's a good quality guy, a good quality utility player to have, and I expect him to have another plus season in 2025. And let's wrap it up with our MLB draft prospect of the night, Xavier Nayens, the third baseman from Mount Vernon High School in Washington. There's been 9 high school hitters to be drafted in the first round and signed out of the state of Washington in the history of the draft, the best of which came in 19 in the form of Corbin Carroll. We all know him. Long known for his bat, Nayens' increase in power has helped him make the jump to top-level prospect, one who extremely busy on the summer showcase circuit, playing at events including the MLB's high school All-American game in the area code games. Nayens has long been seen by area scouts as potentially an elite hitter from left side of the plate with an outstanding approach. He made some adjustments to his setup and swing, adding leverage and starting to show off at least plus raw power and the ability not to get to it, but to do it to all fields. So, project young 5-tool guy, third baseman, never can have too many of them cats. Top 20 pick, definitely, maybe high top 10, and depends if he's a commit. As of far right now, I don't think he's a commit, so he's probably leaving himself open for a potential top 10 drafted position. So keep an eye out for Xavier Nayens from Mount Vernon High School in Washington. And there you go. Our of the night segment is done for the night. I don't want to see Sosa in center field. Filling in. Sosa is a great. Oh, you mean the other Sosa? Yes, I agree. And Sosa's, he's an awesome utility guy. Given your Logan O'Hoppe take, I am surprised you don't have the same feeling about Jojo Romero. Well, I agree. Listen, I've had enough. This is it, Steve. At the end of 2025, if they don't do something, I need to see change And that starts up top too. I think Thompson or Dombrowski need to go if they can't get it together this year. And yes, is it a World Series or bust season? A lot of people say it is. I'm not on that train right now because I don't think they are a World Series team, but it is a rational way to think of it. They are a World Series or bust type situation. And I'm not saying I'm not thinking they're World Series or bust to give them a pass or anything. I just don't think they're that good. But on paper, they are a World Series or bust type situation. If they can't pull it together, it's time to make some changes. It really is. Both Thompson and Dombrowski need to go. I agree. If they regress and lose in the wild card round or don't make the playoffs, sweeping changes need to happen through the upper levels of management. I 100% agree. All right, guys, listen, I got to wrap it up, man. So I thank you for your night. We went for a whole hour and a half tonight. It was a great show. Enjoyed it. Had fun. Again, tomorrow, I don't think so Sal's not going to be doing his show tomorrow. I did have a guest host kind of lined up. That didn't work out. I'll see what I can do about pulling in another. We'll kind of wait and see about the wraparound tomorrow. But please check back and see if we are going to do it. If not, I will be back tomorrow night at 8 o'clock for the final word. And then immediately following the Flyer game tomorrow night, Mike Lara will have you for the post game. So we will have a pretty busy night on the network if we can't get a replacement for Sal. So please be checking back. So I agree, Mike. I absolutely do agree, 100%. Thank you very much, and thank you to Steve and everybody else for chiming in. And I missed my weekly. Yeah, he's not going to be on this week. So he's got to clear the ice later in the week. I know that, but he's not doing the show tomorrow. But we will talk again real soon, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. And please stay tuned to the network for all the great stuff that we got going on. Till you guys talk again, you guys have a great rest of your night and an even better tomorrow.